Are we ready to do this, Maria? Hey, everyone, we're live. Do you wonder how a low-carb diet can help with chronic disease? Are you curious how a low-carb diet impacts athletic performance? Ooh, easy for me to say. Do you wish there were more keto-friendly healthcare providers out there? Well, this episode is for you. Stick around and learn how physician's assistant Maria Shesiuk, I think I said it right. Maria Shesiuk discovered a low-carb diet for herself, how it impacted her health and eating habits, and how she now uses it clinically with her patients. So welcome, everyone, to Keto Chat Live. I'm your host, Carole Freeman, master's in nutrition and clinical health psychology. I'm also a board-certified ketogenic nutrition specialist. I specialize in helping women 40 plus follow a keto diet for sustainable weight loss. Got to plug the medical disclaimer here. The show is meant for educational and entertainment purposes only. It is not meant for medical advice nor intended to diagnose, prevent, treat, or cure anything at all, except for maybe boredom or curiosity. If you have questions or concerns related to your specific medical condition, please seek out your qualified healthcare professional. Welcome, Maria, to the show. So glad that you're here. Everyone who's watching, go ahead and give us a comment, share where you're joining us from, and help me welcome our guest. Maria Shesiuk is a physician's assistant, personal trainer, yoga instructor, and Maria received a BS in psychology from Wayne State University in 2010 and Master's of Science in Physician's Assistant Studies from Towson CCBC PA program in 2012. With hospital-based experience in medical coverage of multiple surgical specialties. She is an so many letters that I'm getting mixed up here. She is an NASM certified personal trainer and a Yoga Alliance certified yoga teacher and a competitive Olympic weightlifter. So, that's a mouthful. Welcome, Maria, to the show.
Thank you so much. I sound really impressive on paper.
You are impressive in person too.
Thank you so much for having me on, Carole. Like we discussed before, I have been following you for quite some time, and one of the lectures, one of the presentations that you gave in Salt Lake City really changed how I think about food and diet in general, and really it helped me, and in turn it helped my patients. So I really appreciate all the work that you're doing. I think it's really, really awesome and incredible.
Oh, well, likewise. I can't wait to get to know you even deeper on today's show, too, and share with you. So I wanted to share. So you sent me the bio I just read, but you also sent me specialized clinical interest and a personal statement, which I'm really impressed with. And I want to share that with everyone first before we go into some more questions for you. So let me do a little more reading and mix up some letters while I'm doing that. So Maria's specialized clinical interest at IHP, which is the clinic that you work at, I'm assuming, right? Maria focuses on functional evaluation, prevention, and treatment of patients with chronic medical conditions, with a particular interest in addressing them with low carbohydrate, ketogenic, and animal-based diets. She also sees patients who are seeking to optimize physical and cognitive performance. Her professional and personal experience has taught her the importance of physical fitness, mindfulness practices, and self-realization in alleviating symptoms of most ailments. And then personal statement, I hope to help you heal by treating the mind and body as one. My desire is not to simply treat symptoms and manage illness, but to help you maximize your levels of energy and vitality so that you can truly enjoy life. We have many powerful tools to help the body heal itself. With an open mind and a large dose of curiosity, I have used nutrition, herbs, and movement practices to heal myself and to help others do the same. I love this last line. I view you, that's her patients, I view you as the practitioner and myself as the facilitator in healing. So I felt really important. I wanted to share that because it's such a different approach than probably most people are used to with their healthcare provider. So powerful. I got tingles all over from it.
Yeah.
So how did you get interested in healthcare in the first place?
Well, it was a long and winding road. I was working on many different degrees because I kept wandering in college. I didn't really quite know what I wanted to do. I had an interest in art. I had an interest in physics. I had an interest in science. I was all over the place, just constantly switching majors. And also there was also concern about what am I going to do with these majors? What will my life look like, if I learned how to draw really well? I mean, there were a lot of uncertainties, because I come from a very modest family. We're immigrants and we never had a lot of money, and I wanted to have both job satisfaction and a decent income and be of some service to society. So I wondered a lot, and also I was very sick in my 20s. I actually started late in high school. In 11th grade, I became very, very ill, and it kind of continued through my 20s. And so part of my switching majors was due to just like not feeling well mentally, spiritually, and physically. So I actually met a PA who kind of experienced the same wandering path, and she's the one that told me about the profession, because I didn't even know what a PA is until she told me about it. And she told me a little bit about her story, and she really inspired me to pursue this profession. And I don't remember her name. So I can't reach out to her and say, hey, thanks. And by the way, do you have any idea the ripple effect that you had from having that really honest discussion with me? Right? Because she didn't have to. She was actually providing care to me at the time, and she did not have to disclose any of that information. And so I often think about her when I talk to my patients, and I do probably share more than most providers are willing to do, because I think that it can have that ripple effect. I mean, I experienced that. And so she got me interested in the profession. At that time, I was kind of got settled on getting a psychology degree, and I actually wanted to become a clinical psychologist. But then she made me change my mind, and I decided to pursue this path instead. So that's it in a nutshell. That's how I got it. But the road to functional medicine, which is the field that I'm working in now, was also very interesting.
Well, let's just next clarify, what is a physician's assistant?
So, Carole, it's actually physician assistant.
Okay, physician assistant. I've been saying, okay.
It's a pretty, a lot of people make that mistake or assumption, whatever you want to call it.
Okay.
We're not really assistants. We work alongside physicians. So there's no, I don't belong to a physician per se. And, we do have quite a bit of independence when making clinical decisions. And the way we work with physicians is the supervisory role is not that he is looking out over my shoulder every minute, telling me what to do. It's just kind of like, it's more of, we should probably be called physician associates rather than assistants, but that's how the profession was born. And so the name kind of stuck.
So what's the difference between physician assistant then and a full-fledged physician? Maybe that will help.
Yeah, so our training is very different. So physicians go through medical school and residency. And by the way, nurse practitioners go through, I think they also have a residency, and they are able to practice completely independently of a physician. Physician assistants go through PA school, which is, it's a different way to learn medicine. We do have clinical rotations, but we do not do residencies. And so it's like we have a little bit more freedom to change specialties because we don't have to do a residency all over again. So there's a lot of freedom in this profession.
All right. And so then tell us more about functional medicine. I'm a big fan of that, and it makes such a huge difference in people's lives. And a lot of times, some of my clients are like, well, why would I have a doctor already? Why would I need to see a functional medicine doctor? So can you share a little bit about, how that kind of healthcare is very different, and, some of the benefits of why somebody may choose that?
So functional medicine is oftentimes called kind of a root cause medicine approach. But somebody in conventional medicine might disagree and say, well, we're looking for root causes too. But it's hard to differentiate it by just saying it's a root cause approach. So then I feel like in functional medicine, like we focus a lot on lifestyle modifications. So a lot on like diet, gut health, things like, perhaps like stealth infections that are often, overlooked in conventional medicine. And so when a patient comes to me, I'm not thinking just in terms of relieving their symptoms, although we do that. But then on top of relieving their symptoms, I'm thinking, okay, so what is the underlying cause here? And we go very deep when it comes to the underlying cause. So, in conventional medicine, maybe if a diabetic comes to the clinic, there is some discussion about diet, but there's a tremendous amount of focus on medications. So we might try, herbal supplements first and really focus on diet. So that's where, for me, the low carb diet is, a huge benefit, right? Like, how else you reduce blood sugar, right? Carbs are sugar. So like, go on a low carb diet. So I encourage, diabetic patients to do that. And I think patients come to us with that expectation. So they're already prepared to kind of make those changes. There's a lot of focus on the gut, lots and lots of focus on the gut health. Yeah.
One of the ways I think of it differently is, like you said in your statement, of thinking of the whole person, whereas conventional medicine kind of looks at each part as a separate thing, and you need a specialist to do the liver, the bones, the eyes, the brain, whereas functional medicine looks at the person as a whole and all the different aspects that go into health, rather than just what medication or surgery can resolve the symptom. And I think another big difference that's typical as well, that surprises people, is how much time they get to spend with you. And do your appointments are 30 or 60 minutes long, whereas
so our the first initial appointment is usually an hour long. The follow-ups, it depends on what the needs of the patient is. It could be 15 minutes, it could be 30 minutes, 40 minutes, but they're definitely much longer. Yeah.
And when's the last time you got more than 5 minutes with your doctor?
Yeah. And so we really think in terms of systems. I mean, but that's not to say that we don't utilize specialties, specialists. Sometimes we do need to send people out to a specialist. So yeah. And we're also an integrative practice. So that means not only do we use a functional approach, but we use other therapies as well. Like we have an energy healer here at the practice. We used to have an acupuncturist and a massage therapist, but that kind of fell apart because of COVID. So we're hoping to bring some of those people back at some point. I used to teach yoga in the practice as well, but I'm not doing that right now. So we use...
where are you located again? We chatted privately, but let's share with everyone.
Yeah, so this is in Ellicott City, Maryland.
Okay.
So near Baltimore, very close to Baltimore. I actually live in Baltimore.
So tell anyone you know in Maryland, you can go see Maria at her clinic. Yeah, there's we're covering each corner and every state one by one here on the show. So you'd said that you'd heard a talk that I did, which actually you referred me a client, and I reached out to interview because I'm like, who is this person that knows me and I don't know her? And so you shared that you heard a talk that I did at Salt Lake City, which would have been, I think it was 2019, 2018, maybe.
I think 2019.
Yeah. So how you must have heard about low carb before you heard the conference. Tell me more about what led you there. And
I think it might have been part of I don't know. I used to listen to so many low carb conferences and lectures on YouTube that I can't even tell you how I found you. But I started low carb in 2015.
Okay.
And I just think it's a funny story. I had this book that I purchased. It's called Why We Get Fat by Gary Taubes. And this book sat on my shelf probably for a couple of years. And
backwards, I can't point at it. It's right there.
I should have it in my office. and it was sitting on my shelf, and I was sort of clearing out my space and looking at all of the books and trying to figure out what I'm going to keep and what I'm going to donate, because I didn't have a ton of high quality books that I was going to read again. And so I picked up this book. I'm like, what's this? I started flipping through it, and I must have flipped to the right page, because I start reading this book somewhere in the middle of it. And it just really grabbed me, like something I was reading in there. I couldn't put it down. I finished it within a couple of days. And after reading that book, it's like all these light bulbs started going off. And prior to reading it, I had all sorts of health issues that I was kind of sort of managing, but very poorly. Like I had severe cystic acne, depression, anxiety, insomnia, just endless GI problems. I actually went through 2 rounds of Accutane that probably even contributed to my GI problems even more. And I just, I tried being a vegan and a vegetarian, and I tried this and that and the other, and nothing was really helping me. And so I decided to give low carb a try. And it wasn't just low carb. I wanted to try ketogenic diet. And so I really focused on staying ketogenic, not just low carb, because there's certainly a difference. And so within about 2 weeks of doing, not a very good ketogenic diet, because I didn't know what the hell I was doing, my skin completely cleared up. So ketogenic diet within a couple of weeks did for me what 2 rounds of Accutane could not do. And it was so shocking to me that I actually thought I was pregnant. I couldn't put 2 and 2 together. I didn't realize that a diet can make such a big change. So I kept taking pregnancy tests, thinking I must be pregnant, because I've never had clear skin, since I was maybe 10 years old. But then it dawned on me that the only thing that really changed was my diet. And so I started researching. I would just Google acne and ketogenic diet, and there it was. So it turns out that could have been an option for me, but the physicians that I kept going to never offered it to me. They never said, hey, like, not even ketogenic, like maybe like cut out sugar, cut out, grains, breads, pastas, and some of this might resolve. I mean, you would think that a dermatology office at a very prestigious university would know these things, would know this information, would offer that to me and let me decide if I want to do the keto route or if I want to do the Accutane route. But they made it sound like Accutane was the only way to go. Right. So that's when my eyes started to open real wide. And I realized what a powerful tool diet truly is. And so then, of course, I started sleeping better. My energy shot through the roof. I was no longer bloated, although that did come back because I started eating way too many vegetables. I got on the vegetable craze, and I had to get away from that. So that's how I started. But the low carb journey for me took on many different variations. But yeah, that was the start. And I was almost addicted to listening to all these low carb lectures because I just couldn't get enough. I mean, just the amount of information that physicians and PhDs and nutritionists just give away for free was just incredible. It was like I felt like I was getting a PhD without going to school.
Oh, so true. So you shared a little bit that when you heard my talk, it really changed your approach and then your approach with your clients. So I'm really curious to hear how that impacted you.
Yeah. So I know in that particular lecture, I know that you talked about the raccoons, right? The raccoons that if you feed them, they're going to keep coming back. And you were talking about sugar cravings. And I don't know why that was so like such earth-shattering news to me that like if you want the cravings to go away, you actually have to stop eating that food and constantly feeding the raccoons. So I continue to use that with my patients, but also you talk a lot about like not flipping through recipes all the time. So like not letting that food be some kind of I guess food porn is the only way I can put it, right? And also you talk a lot about the behaviors, the behavior changes in order to make low carb work, and keeping it simple and eating real food. So all of those things helped me stay on track. And then, I pass it on to my patients because it's so easy to turn a ketogenic diet into yet another sort of junky low carb thing. Right.
Yeah, probably all the symptoms that you got rid of could come back if you went the processed food, pseudofiber products are out there, right?
Right. And there's so much of that junk out there.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad. It's so touching to me to know that, because sometimes it feels like I'm speaking into a void of like, does anybody realize how important this is? I'm as passionate about the psychology of this as the nutrition aspect of it. And I've studied, I don't know how to measure the hours of which one I've studied more, but all throughout school, I was learning about, from Stephan Guyenet is a very big influence in me, as well as Kathleen Des Masons. She had a PhD in addictive nutrition. And so that was a book I found a long time ago, and just really opening my eyes to, I love learning about, what is it that causes cravings and how do we get rid of them instead of just managing them? And what are the things that influence appetite too? So Stephan Guyenet, that's his wheelhouse, is all the different aspects that come into play of like what triggers us to overeat. And so what I teach is really, paramount and foundational to like, how do we actually regulate our appetite so we're not just constantly feeling hungry and regaining the weight? And it's a battle. It's a constant lifelong journey in this world that we live in, that where, every other day there's another, probably 10 foods a day of new keto foods that are coming out. And it keeps me busy with my clients asking, well, what about this thing? I saw this at Costco the other day. And I said, well, let's look at the ingredients and see what you think. And so I'm so glad that resonates with you. And it does make a difference. I mean, I've been doing this. I just celebrated my 7-year anniversary of following this myself. We started the same year. And it working with everyone that I have, it makes a huge difference in, quality of life and the sustainability of it, is as long as they continue to address those things. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see. So another question is, okay, so you had amazing results and like a lot of people, really dramatic results in a very short period of time. And so what was it then that kept you on the path and continuing with it?
I didn't want to go back to what I came from. That was just too terrifying, that constant misery. I can't believe how long I sort of functioned, because not really, in that state of like brain fog and chronic fatigue. And, I still managed to run marathons in that state. And I think the reason I loved running so much is because running relieved a lot of the agitation that I had all the time. And running helped me sleep, running helped my anxiety. So running was good in a way because it helped me manage these symptoms. But, I'm not sure that it's healthy to run marathons all the time just to maintain some kind of level of health, right? So what kept me coming back is the amazing results. And I didn't want that misery anymore. But I still made a lot of mistakes and I wasn't 100%. So all the following years, I was constantly tweaking and learning new information, undoing some of the mistakes that I was making on a ketogenic diet. Like one of which was I restricted my protein. And then I learned that, well, I mean, duh, I'm an athlete. Why am I restricting my protein, right? I was so obsessed with staying in ketosis that I was afraid to eat protein. Well, that's not good for an athlete. I mean, that's not good for anybody, really. And so then I changed that behavior. I started eating more protein. I noticed that, all these green smoothies I was drinking and all the
Mm-hmm.
salads I was eating just kept me kind of almost as bloated as the grains did.
Mm.
And so then I had to kind of change that around a little bit. And eventually I actually stumbled upon some carnivores in the community and went a little bit more down the carnivore path. And so I'm not a strict carnivore. However, I call myself carnivore-ish. I eat a lot of animal foods, mostly animal foods with a little bit of plants. And I am pretty low carb, but probably not ketogenic at this point. So that's my kind of story of where I started and where I am now.
Mm.
But what I have to say, what the ketogenic diet did for me is it seems to have balanced out all of my hormones. Like I'm sure that my leptin was totally out of whack. I'm sure my insulin was probably sky high from all the carbs I was eating for the running and stuff. And it seems to have completely downregulated my cravings. And so now if I eat something a little bit carby, like there's a stopping point. Like I don't feel like I want to keep eating and eating and eating this stuff. So, just a little bit of something like a half an orange or a grapefruit satisfies, whatever glucose that I'm craving. And I don't have to keep going. So.
Yeah, that's I like that you're sharing that too, because I found for my clients is that there's a wide spectrum of how metabolically unhealthy people are. And some people like you that have a very strong athletic background and weren't significantly overweight, you have a lot more metabolic flexibility. You've got to that point that your body's pretty healthy. And as long as you're sticking with real whole foods, I'm sure that you have a lot more leeway, but you're also able to make the choice of eating the foods that make you feel the best instead of being stuck in cravings and food obsession.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like, for example, today was an incredibly busy day, and I didn't even have time to make lunch. I didn't have any breakfast food because I haven't been grocery shopping. I mean, just this week has been kind of a little bit of a disaster. So I had some coffee this morning, and like I've been seeing patients all day, and I didn't have to eat. Like I did not have to eat until 2, 3 p.m. I wasn't even hungry. And to me, that is a sign of metabolic health because my body, like I don't crash. So my body just reverts to burning fat for fuel. My brain is working and I don't have to eat. So then in the afternoon, I had some sardines. It's not exciting, but it's whatever. It's protein, it's fat. When I come home, I might have something a little bit more exciting than that. That's like another thing that is a gift of the low carb lifestyle, is that I don't have these constant food cravings and addiction. Like I can eat something that maybe isn't very exciting or, it's not going to give me a dopamine rush. Because I look at food as fuel instead of entertainment. And that really came from the low carb diet, from this lifestyle, from everything that I've learned, is understanding that food is fuel first. Maybe occasionally it can be entertainment, but not every day, all the time.
Yeah. Oh, that's so true. We live in a world where like people think they need to have dessert 6 times a day.
Right. I get a lot of this, like, well, I don't like to eat that, or don't like to eat this. And it's like, well, it's okay to occasionally eat something you don't like very much to fuel your body properly. Right.
Yeah. If food is your only entertainment, it's really time to look at living a more balanced life.
Yeah.
A healthy, energetic, spiritual, well-rounded person has more interests and things that they can turn to for entertainment.
Yeah. But I remember what it was like to have food as entertainment. I remember that feeling, and it's such a horrible trap to be in. To shift focus and to find other hobbies and find other things. It's a lot of work. It's not an overnight change. I mean, it actually takes practice. So like every day I would wake up and, and practice doing those things. Right. So, eat a breakfast that is full of fat and protein, so I don't get these crazy cravings. And then work on finding something in my life that brings me so much joy that I stop thinking about food.
Yes.
And I found those things. But again, like if I didn't stumble on the low carb diet, then I wouldn't be doing all of that work.
So how did you find that low carb diet impacted your athletic performance? So you're a yoga instructor and Olympic weightlifter. Tell us how that impacted your physical things you like to do.
So the Olympic weightlifting came a little bit later. So that was 2.5 years ago, actually. Prior to that, I was a long distance runner. Like I said, I did marathons and just long distance running in general, just for fun, basically. And I'm a yoga practitioner. I've been practicing for about 10 years, a little bit less in the last 2.5 years, just because of the Olympic weightlifting kind of takes up a lot of time. So for running, I didn't need to refuel, period. The only thing I needed was
it's so fun because no goo and no bonking.
No, and no consequences of eating goo because my stomach couldn't handle that. So yeah, I could run forever, pretty much. Because I think even when you're really lean, you have enough body fat to probably run 100 miles. So, I wasn't a sprinter. I mean, perhaps sprinters could use a little bit more glucose because it's a highly glycolytic sport, but long distance running requires no sugar. Like you can just run on fat. So once I got fat adapted, running just became so easy. I just needed water and salt. And then yoga is not a glycolytic I'm not going to call it a sport activity. It's not a glycolytic activity. You don't need any carbs for yoga whatsoever. So what I found was in my yoga practice, once I switched to low carb, my focus improved. So it was easier to get into that meditative state. My mind wasn't constantly all over the place. I was way more focused. And I could hold poses for a really long time, which I couldn't actually do when I was very carb dependent. And I didn't have any cramping. I would go to these hot classes and not suffer any cramps or exhaustion or feeling like I'm going to pass out. But in Olympic weightlifting, it's been kind of an interesting journey. So I should probably tell you, for the past 2.5 years, I've been experimenting, adding some carbs and then taking carbs away and adding some carbs. And really, I can't say that carbs have done anything magical for me in Olympic weightlifting. Sometimes if I'm training for a solid 3 hours, and once I get to the second half of my training session, I find that I'm getting a little bit slow. I'll have like a tablespoon of honey. And so really that's like 25 grams of sugar, right? But I'm still lifting for like another hour and a half. So by the time I'm done, there's nothing left, right? So I've tried that approach, and that seems to work a little bit, but I don't even always do that. Sometimes I'm fine going through an entire training session without anything. I mean, I can train that hard for 3 hours in a fasted state. And that, once again, that's only because I spent so many years in this fat adapted state.
Yeah. Oh, this is great. I mean, it's the typical story, Maria, where it's oh, boring. Everything got better. Everything's better in my life. Yawn. Everything got better.
Everything got better.
Yeah. I'm having flashbacks of when I interviewed Dr. Ted Naaman the first time. So I'm originally a Seattleite and interviewed him many years ago and asked him, well, what do you see gets better for people when they go low carb? And he says, everything you can measure gets better. So
yeah, I listened to that interview, and I'm a huge fan of him. He, he's very protein centric. And so when I started eating more protein about 3 years ago, when I kind of went more down carnivore-ish route, I started feeling stronger, and I had even less cravings then. So like the under eating of protein, I was kind of screwing myself for a number of years doing that. And so I really appreciated the information that he has provided. in the low carb space about, the importance of paying attention to protein. There's also Don Layman. I don't know if you're familiar with his work. He is a researcher, a protein researcher, who talks a lot about the quality of protein, the amount that we need. So I've listened to quite a few interviews with him as well.
Ooh, fun. A new person for me to rabbit hole on.
Yes.
I hadn't heard of him. So that's one of the changes I've made over my journey as well. And this is episode 47 of my show. And my last episode 46, I did my 7-year keto anniversary show and talked about the things that are different than the beginning. And the same thing for me. In the beginning, we all thought we had to keep protein adequate, not too high. And that's a big shift that I've made myself. And then also with all of my clients. And you're right, it makes a big difference of reducing cravings overall, better hair, skin, and nails. And so a lot of my ladies would, as they were losing weight, would lose a lot of hair. I did it as well. And now when I recommend a much higher protein intake for them, they don't have that issue of the hair falling out anymore. So,
yep. Amino acids are the building blocks of life, right? We probably aren't getting enough of those.
Yeah. Well, and another big influence of mine is Peter Attia, and he's been talking recently about how little protein, like when he sees middle-aged women coming in, that's the number one issue they have is they don't eat enough protein. And so it's interesting how much work it is too to gradually, I usually stair step my ladies into higher protein. I trick them and start them at 80 grams and then I want them like 100 usually or more. And at first they're like, it's so much protein. And I'm like, just wait. But once they get there, once they get used to having that much, they actually prefer that. They feel better. They crave the protein more than they do other things too. So
yeah, it is a hard change because protein, especially animal protein, well, it's not very exciting to eat. It doesn't give you that dopamine rush. It's kind of boring. So yeah, it's hard to make that change. And also, like I've noticed in my patients, the patients that have been eating low protein most of their life and maybe like a higher carbohydrate diet, they seem to have some enzyme deficiencies. They have a really hard time digesting the protein. So you have to kind of slowly help them build up to a better level of protein intake.
Yeah. They need the amino acids from the protein to make the enzymes to digest the protein.
Yeah. But I hear the story all the time. One of the questions I ask, I ask my patients, I tell them, give me your typical day of eating. And, it's like over and over again, I hear, well, I have a hard-boiled egg and a piece of toast and, some fruit, or my personal favorite, steel-cut oats with fruit and honey.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, where's the protein? Oh, I eat peanut butter, stuff like that.
Yeah. Or a green smoothie with yogurt, right?
Or the protein powders, the endless protein powders. Yeah. So I don't know. In a way, those are the easy patients because, you make a few small changes and they're like a million times better.
Yeah. So how do you use low carb or ketogenic diets clinically?
Well, in like a million different ways.
Everything gets better. So
everything gets better. Didn't we already conclude that?
Yeah.
Well, so we certainly have plenty of patients with metabolic issues and elevated A1Cs, high blood sugar. We have a lot of patients with chronic pain issues. So, inflammation, low carbohydrate diets certainly reduce inflammation. It never ceases to amaze me how, patients go on a low carb diet for a while and they're like, oh, I forgot to tell you, like, this back problem I had, I don't have it anymore. Like, what do you think that's from?
I've found that my people that had to go to the chiropractors a lot before keto. So sorry, chiropractors, but they're just like, oh, I haven't had to go in 30 days or a month or two. Oh yeah, my back feels great.
They're having that same realization that I did when I realized that it was in fact the ketogenic diet that cleared up my skin, not a surprise pregnancy, right? So it's that, oh, it can do that?
Yeah. Have you heard this one as well, Maria? Because this is one of the most, I haven't seen, there's no, I don't, as far as I know, there's no research on this as well, but a lot of my ladies, everyone who's ever experienced urinary incontinence, that goes away as well. And it's one of those things as a mother, we're told like, oh, that's just part of pregnancy. You get torn up down there, get used to it. And one time on a group call, somebody shared that and they're like, this is a weird thing. Has anybody else noted it? And everybody on the call was like, oh yeah, me too. So, I mean, somebody may say like, oh, it's just less weight on there, but it goes away much faster than the amount of weight that you'd think that would have to be taken away from, pressure on the bladder. So somehow it just makes all the muscles work better.
It makes the muscles work better. And think about this, they could have like a cystitis, right? So an inflamed gallbladder, not gallbladder, what am I saying? An inflamed bladder, urinary bladder. And if you put them on a low carb diet, the inflammation is reduced. And so they don't have the urgency, they don't have the spasm anymore. So it makes sense. I mean, I can't say that I personally have had clients or patients with that particular issue, but it makes sense when you think about the physiology of it all.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We also utilize, and I say low carb because, sometimes it's ketogenic, sometimes it's just low carb. We offer mistletoe therapy here in the office. And I don't know if you're familiar with mistletoe, but it is like a supportive therapy for patients with cancer. And so we do get patients coming here for various therapies that, have cancer and are trying to add something to their conventional therapies. And so oftentimes they do go on ketogenic diets to starve the cancer. So that's another application. And I feel so honored and so fortunate that I can sort of help them guide them through it. Like I've had 2 or 3 cancer patients that I've worked with Remission Nutrition, which is like it's a service for ketogenic diets for cancer. But in addition to that, they have me as a resource. So they don't have to go to that service every time. They can just come to me and say, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And I can guide them through that. And I think that's really, really cool.
Do you
patients with memory problems, dementia, right?
Yeah,
we've had that too. That's a little bit more difficult because the memory problems, the dementia itself can make following ketogenic diet very difficult. So challenge.
So many powerful applications of it. What kind of reception do you get from your patients when you talk about this?
Oh, it's all over the place. If I'm talking about low carb, and that's the term I'm using, then most patients are fine with it. They're at least open-minded about it. If I start going more towards like a carnivorous diet, like a carnivore-ish diet, I'm not even calling it carnivore, like a meat-based diet, they're like, oh, wait a minute. Doesn't meat cause cancer? And, on and on and on. So I get a lot of skepticism.
There's all these terms we have to come up with, like a light plant diet. Maybe they'd accept that a little bit more. A reduced plant diet versus a meat-centric diet.
Right. Yeah. Animal-based.
Yeah.
So the reception is kind of all over the place, and the word is kind of getting out into the public sphere. So people are a little bit more open-minded, and certainly people that come here are very open-minded about all sorts of alternative therapies.
Do you do any work with like CGMs or?
Yes.
Okay.
So CGMs are still very expensive. The one that I've been recommending, I probably shouldn't be name dropping. They're expensive. And so I think that unless you are actually a diabetic or a type 1 diabetic, insurance companies don't always cover them. So it has to be the right patient, right? Basically, patient with disposable income.
Well, mention it. Maybe they'll sponsor the show.
Well, NutriSense is the one that I'm
okay.
with. Yeah, but I can't even afford it. I wanted to do it, but I don't have that kind of cash. So, but yeah, I think it's an incredible device. It's very useful because you do get immediate feedback on how you respond to certain foods. instead of guessing or having to, prick your finger. And the blood sugar meters are not very accurate. I remember that when I used to prick myself for ketones and blood sugar, it was all over the place, and I tried multiple meters. So I love the idea of using a CGM.
You do the same. You do the stick a couple of times, and it's like
10 points.
5 to 10 points. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think to myself, well, how do diabetics deal with this? Because they can overdo the insulin. Yeah.
So when those people that can afford the CGM, how do you recommend they try it out?
I usually recommend 3 months. I think 3 months is a really good time frame.
Is that something you find then is a helpful tool in getting people to convert to low carb? Like they can see, I've seen this in some friends of mine online that they aren't keto, but they've got the CGM and they're like, oh my gosh, these foods, I don't want to eat that anymore because I had no idea what it was doing inside my body. Do you find that it kind of helps people that are a little hesitant to go low carb?
Definitely. But I can't say that my patients are like the patients that agree to these things are not really super hesitant to begin with.
Okay.
They're already sort of on the path. But it's just a great learning tool.
Yeah, more of like a biohacker type of person. Is
yeah,
that?
Exactly. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're great for, especially once you get to that point where you're metabolically healthy and determining which foods work for you, which ones don't, and then what quantity of those. Another thing that comes up too is just how stress affects your blood sugar too.
Oh yeah.
One of my ladies that was finding out like, oh my gosh, every time I go into this meeting at work, my blood sugar goes up 30 points just thinking about going into it.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah. And I wonder about like my coffee consumption. I am a bit of a caffeine addict. How much my blood sugar is affected by that. I guess I'll never find out because I can't afford the CGM.
Come on, NutriSense, send Maria a sample one. So maybe they'll be well, I don't want lower quality ones, but you know how there's all the different companies now that put out like the glucose monitors and the ketone meters. I get contacted all the time by like, hey, you want to try this one out? And I'm thinking like, they're probably not very accurate. Why would I want to waste my time on that? But maybe someday we'll have some more affordable CGM monitors on the market.
Yeah.
I just think that for any style of eating, a CGM is going to be pretty powerful
100%.
in helping you figure out what foods work for you in general.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Well, what does your current diet look like? You gave us some examples. Do you want to share, a typical day of, I guess you kind of told us today of but like maybe a more typical day of.
Sure. So there's a typical day of when I'm at home and there's a typical day of when I'm at work. I have been recently starting my mornings with actually raw eggs. I found that I tolerate raw eggs much better than cooked eggs. I haven't found the explanation for this phenomenon yet. So I get my eggs from a local farm.
Are you doing, can I just, this is a little area that I've studied a lot on. Are you only doing the yolk?
No, I'm doing the yolk and the whites.
So the white has a compound in there, avidin. Do you know about that and how it binds with biotin?
Yes, but I also talked to another nutritionist and he said that if you're eating the yolk and the white together and you have other sources of biotin, that it shouldn't be a problem. I
would challenge that because the avidin has a binding capacity for more biotin than what's in the yolk of a typical egg, and it will bind with other biotin in your body, and over time it can start to cause a biotin deficiency. Yeah. And so this is why cooking the white inactivates it. But also maybe just toss out the white and just do the yolk part.
I need the protein.
Some more yolks.
More
yolks.
Just the thought of throwing food out makes me sick to my stomach. I'm just I can't.
Yeah, maybe so. Separate them and cook the yolk just a little bit. This is something I've researched a lot. I used to teach nutrition classes too, and so it's something I find is not really well known. Like for a while, there was people recommending that you put raw eggs in coffee. And that also, like, it's just not enough heat on the white to inactivate that avidin that's in there. So
it's really easy for me. We actually have a LabCorp in the building, so it'll be really easy for me to order a biotin test and take a look. So yeah, I mean, and then that was a concern of mine, but it's like there's this back and forth on this issue, and so I'm like, all right, let me just do this for a while and see what happens. But yeah, so
continue on. Raw egg.
So it's interesting. If I cook the 8 eggs, I feel really sick. I just feel like I ate too much. But if I drink, and this brings up an excellent point. This is why drinking your calories when you're trying to lose weight is a really bad idea.
Yeah.
I am not trying to lose weight. I'm actually trying to maintain my weight because it's so hard to maintain my muscle mass and my weight doing what I'm doing in the Olympic weightlifting. So that's why I started drinking the eggs, and I find that it doesn't make me feel very full. And I feel good. Like I feel I'm not hungry, but I'm not stuffed, and I'm getting this tremendous amount of super high quality nutrients and protein and fat soluble vitamins. So that's been my favorite breakfast recently. Sometimes I make a little smoothie with eggs and heavy cream. I know that sounds gross, but sorry.
People have had it. It tastes amazing. It's like eggnog, right?
It pretty much, yeah. You add a little stevia to it, tastes like eggnog. And then lunch. Sometimes I eat lunch, sometimes I don't. If I'm at work, I'll keep it simple and just either bring some leftover, whether it's a hamburger or bratwurst, whatever we grilled the night before. And I love pickles. I can't live without my pickles. Pickles with everything. And then dinner is usually whatever we remember to defrost out of the freezer. We buy whole animals. So we buy a whole pig and a whole cow from a farm. And whatever is at the top is what we pull out and defrost and throw on the grill. And then as far as like the plants go, and by the way, so I do try to split up my protein intake throughout the day. So like, for example, I might not have a formal lunch, but I will have like a can of tuna, which is like 40 grams of protein, or I'll have a can of sardines, something easy and quick to get in that extra protein. And then for dinner, I might have like 2 or 3 burgers with cheese, with some pickles, and a glass of milk. Sometimes we grill bratwurst. We have lots of pork because we buy the whole animal. So, ground pork with a little bit of vegetables just for flavor. My meals are very kind of, I guess most people would say they're boring, right? Because it's just cook some meat with some salt and, maybe a little vegetable here and there. It's just really simple.
Well, it's such an ancestral way of eating, though. And
right.
For most of human existence, we ate very, very simply.
Yeah.
And we're much healthier.
Right. The vegetable, well now, like I'm growing cucumbers. So my cucumbers are going to start coming up soon. I do love cucumber. So the cucumber pickle thing, I have an obsession with cucumbers and pickles. I do like olives. I love arugula. So I have some arugula growing. So like, I might load up on that stuff during their growing season and eat a little bit less of that in the wintertime. So very, very simple. And like my salad dressing is really high quality olive oil and red wine vinegar. That's it. And salt.
Doesn't need to be more than that. Yeah. Love it.
If I really want something sweet, I might have a little cup of yogurt with a few blueberries and like a teaspoon of honey and maybe some pecans. So like my go-tos are occasional pecans, occasional blueberries.
What's your favorite brand of olive oil?
This is almost kind of embarrassing. Kirkland brand, organic extra virgin olive oil. Because it tastes great. I think it won some awards for purity in the past, and that's
good to know.
I think that's why I started buying it in the first place.
Okay.
And it has that bitterness and like that peppery taste of really high quality olive oil.
Oh yeah.
And it's inexpensive.
I personally like to order Baryani, which they press their own. And
Wow.
you're right. When you get that real olive oil, it is so different than what most fake olive oil
Right.
is. Yeah.
Well, most fake olive oils are really soybean oil. You know that.
Yeah. I assumed it was canola, which I don't know if it's any better or not. But
No, it's probably just as bad.
Well,
have you seen the canola making process?
I have not. I remember in school us going through like a chart of the 7,500 steps and all that kind of stuff. So
look up the videos on YouTube.
Oh,
it's pretty disturbing.
I can only imagine. Yeah. Well, was there anything else you were hoping I would ask about, or anything else you want to share before we wrap this up?
I'm sure as soon as we're done, I'm going to think of a million things that I should have said, but hey, that's how it goes. I really appreciate you reaching out and doing this. And I'm so glad that we connected, and now I have yet another resource for my patients.
Oh,
this is really great.
Now, people can work with you in person. Did you figure out whether you can do any virtual consults or anything?
We really can't.
Okay.
The first visit has to be in person, but the follow-up visits can be virtual.
Okay, so if you can make your way to Maryland and go see Maria in person, then she could be your healthcare provider. But tell anyone that you know that lives in Maryland or nearby there if we need to spread the word about people that are doing the good work out there and helping people actually change their health for the better. And so let's see. So next week's episode is going to be the secrets of ending emotional eating. I'm relaunching I have a program called the Pathway to End Emotional Eating. It is 100% of the psychology. It's based on DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy. And by popular demand, I've had a bunch of people reaching out and saying like, hey, I kind of need something else here. So next week's episode is going to be all about information about why we emotional eat, what it is, why we have feelings in the first place. Oh my gosh, they're so annoying. Why do we even have to have feelings? How we learn to use food to cope with that and the other ways that we do, and then how to begin to unravel that habit that we have and begin to address our true needs so that we can have healthy relationship with our emotions. And so that's going to be next week's episode. So come back. Thank you again, Maria, for being here. If you're out there, so how can they get in touch with you? Is there a website for your clinic?
Yeah, so it's integrativehealthpractices.org.
Let me do a banner here. Integrative Health Practices.org. Okay. And I'm going to put that on the screen right now there. Did I spell it right? Integrativehealthpractices.org is if you'd like to check out Maria's work and consult with her.
I also have an Instagram account. If anybody is interested in following me, where I occasionally post what I eat and what I'm doing athletically. I go by Meaty Maria. So this is funny. It's Meaty Maria and Keto Carole.
Okay. Oh my gosh, I love that. Meaty Maria. Okay.
Meaty Maria is called, it's MEEE A 3 E's 2 A's TY Maria.
Okay.
There were apparently many Meaty Marias on Instagram, so I had to.
Let me put that one up. Okay, so I think. Let's see if I spelled this one right.
Are you on Instagram, Carole?
I am. Yes, Keto Carole. Did I get it right?
No, you're missing an E. There's 3 E's.
3 E's. Okay. Let me edit that. I put it right on my paper. Here we go. There we go. 3 E's, 2 A's, Meaty Maria on Instagram. Oh my gosh, I'm going to go follow you. How fun. This has been so fun. Thank you so much, Maria, for being here and sharing the work that you do, your transformation, inspiring other people to do the same. Go check out her on Instagram. And if you live in the Maryland area, or you can get yourself out to Maryland, go check out integrativehealthpractices.org. If you're struggling on keto, And maybe you're struggling with emotional eating, come back next week, but also check out my website, ketocarole.com. And if you enjoyed the show, tell a friend, because remember, if you help us grow the show, we'll help you shrink. And thanks again, Maria, for being here. Thank you all, the viewers and listeners, and we'll see you next week.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.